I scaled from 6K per month in online business to 20K per month in under 30 days when I fixed this problem in my brain that was holding me back. And that problem is urgency. Right? So if you're not at your current business goal, that might be, 10K per month, it might be even less than that, right? If you haven't hit that yet and you're wondering why, one of the reasons that you simply don't have the urgency. Urgency means internal and external factors that push you towards achieving your goal. So hypothetically, if I held a gun to your head and said, look, you need to come up with 10 grand this month, right? You would find some way to make that happen. But the reality is that nobody's pushing you like that. You don't have that kind of pressure on you. If you can just finish this video and commit to the action steps in the video fully, then you will be at 10K per month or whatever your goal is before you even know what to do with it. So right now I'm going to take you through one of the modules in the Masculine Clarity course, which is in my community, the Winner's Circle. And this entire module is about creating urgency for yourself. So without further ado, we're going to get into that module. Let's go. All right, hello gents. So now we're going to go into the next module, which is called Burning the Boats. We're going to start with a quote here from Robert Greene, which is that you are your own worst enemy. You waste precious time dreaming of the future instead of engaging in the present. Since nothing seems urgent to you, you're only half involved in what you do. Now, the only way to change is through action and outside pressure. Put yourself in situations where you have too much at stake to waste time or resources. If you cannot afford to lose, you won't. Okay, so first we're going to touch briefly on using your vision, right? Using your vision document for urgency, right? This is the next step. So you can't just, like I said in the previous video, you can't just create your vision document and then never think about it again. Okay. You need to sear those possible realities onto your mind, right? Onto your mind and use it as a lens through which to view the world, right? You need to filter all of your actions through the lens, whether it's going to bring you to your personal hell or whether it's going to bring you to your personal heaven, right? So this will give you internal urgency. So motivation, you can think about motivation like a combination of external urgency and internal urgency. Okay, you have the stuff that's all going on in your head, and then you have your external pressures. Okay, so internal urgency is artificial, right? Because you are, in a sense, constructing this. You're engineering this urgency in your mind yourself, right? You're, like I said in the previous video, you can almost put yourself, in fact, you can put yourself into fight or flight just from your own brain, right? So it's extremely powerful. So internal urgency is artificial. You can cultivate it by consciously filtering your current actions through the lens of your vision. That is to ask yourself, is this action bringing me closer to my personal hell or my personal heaven? Asking yourself that question based on your actions. Now, if the answer is hell, then let it piss you off and infuriate you that you are consciously choosing to partake in this action until you basically cannot stand yourself for doing it anymore, right? So this is like when you're doing that thing, let's say you're scrolling Instagram or whatever it is that's useless to you, having that ability to feel the visceral emotion, right? First, you can start with like that emotion of just, thinking about where that's going to lead you, where that's going to lead your life, what that's going to look like. And it starts there, right? It starts with feeling that fear, right? And then at some point you can also get to the point where you don't just feel fear, you just feel anger at your own actions, right? Anger at your behavior, like just letting it piss you off. Like, how am I letting myself do this? That's also a very visceral emotion, right? So that's another thing that you can draw on, right? You don't just have to draw on like pain, fear, you can draw on things like anger as well. Now, of course, I don't mean anger in a sense of beating yourself up, because another frame of mind to have about this is that at least for me, it's impossible for me to beat myself up. Okay, why do I say that? Because in order for me to beat myself up, I need to be giving the beating, but I also need to be taking the beating. And I don't see myself as someone who can ever take a beating. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't sit around and victimize myself. I don't even see myself as being able to be victimized by me. So it's just a complete non-starter for me. It's actually a complete non-sequitur, like beating yourself up. It doesn't make sense to me, because I'm not someone who can take a beating from myself. I don't look at myself as a victim, but I can put a beating on myself. I just won't be taking that beating. Like, I'm putting a beating on a version of me that I am trying to actively discard. That version of me that is bringing me to my personal hell, that's who I'm putting a beating on, right? I'm not putting a beating on the good sides of me where I'm like, hey, like you could actually go to your personal heaven. I'm not beating that guy up. I'm beating up the guy that's bringing me to my personal hell. And I don't associate with that guy. I don't identify with him, right? So let it piss you off, right? And infuriate you that part of you, that version of you who is bringing you to your personal hell is winning right now. He's winning as you're fucking scrolling Instagram. Let that piss you off and be like, nah, fuck you, guy. I know what your actions are going to bring me. I know where my future is going to go if I follow you. Fuck that. I'm not going to do that. Let it piss you off until you can't stand that part of yourself. That part of yourself that is clinging to your mediocrity. That's clinging to your bad habits that are just holding you back from actually doing work, for example, right? So you shouldn't be able to stand it. It should just infuriate you. Like, how am I letting this happen? Now, the trick is to consciously put pressure on yourself, but not to stress yourself out or beat yourself up, okay? Like I was just talking about. That's the difference. It's just, the only difference is just a little frame. It's a mindset frame shift, okay? So Viktor E. Frankl, really good quote from him. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Between the stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom and power to choose our responses. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Okay, so what this means is that the stimulus, right, is here. I'm clearly not where I want to be. Got it. Okay. I'm far away. Okay. Now, pressure is this exact stimulus, this feeling, right? Or that can be triggered by just your actions, behaviors, whatever you're doing, that demonstrate that you're clearly not where you want to be. The stimulus plus your positive response spiral, okay, to that stimulus is what we want to practice, right? Versus the stimulus being your negative, and your negative response spiral is what we want to avoid. So that's what I mean by put pressure on yourself. Pressure is what, like, you need to know that you work well under pressure. You do. You have evidence for this in your life somewhere. Find it. Like, think to your past. What were times that I was under pressure and that I actually came over and like it was surmountable and I actually did well? Think about that. You have evidence for this. So you work well under pressure. This is how you need to identify yourself as. But that doesn't mean that you want to put yourself under stress, okay? You want to put yourself in pressure, which is the stimulus plus, like what Viktor Frankl is saying, we get to choose our response. So my response to this stimulus is going to be, I am better than this, right? So let's say something happens that demonstrates that I'm clearly a fool, right? If I'm a fool, okay, my best example of this, or just the one that comes to my head, is there was one time that I was in my old house and I have cats, right? So I've got like 3 cats. They sleep in the kitchen at night. I went into the kitchen at night to like make some food or something because I was staying up. And I opened the kitchen door and my cat came flying out. One of my cats just went boom right out of the kitchen. And they're not supposed to be out of the kitchen at night. Otherwise they're gonna like cause havoc in the house and gonna wake people up, right? So my cat goes darting out of the kitchen. I'm like, fuck. And so this little shit, like this cat is such a little shit. He keeps like running around the house. I'm chasing after him literally, right? It's like 1 a.m. Imagine me like I'm in a pitch black living room chasing this cat. And he has the advantage because cats have these eyes that pupils dilate so big and they can see in the dark. So this cat's running around and I'm chasing after him. And I'm getting so flustered. I chase him for a good 2 minutes. Like a good 120 seconds of me chasing after this fucking cat. Couldn't catch him. And he was like hissing at me, swatting my hand and everything. And I got so infuriated. And I just looked at him, and his name's Cosmo. I was like, you know what, Cosmo? Fuck you. Fuck you, whatever. Stay out of the kitchen. I don't give a fuck. Screw you. And I was pissed, and I stormed into the kitchen after that. And started like making my food, all fucking pissed off. And then I sat for a second. I was like, hang on. Chris, are you really gonna let yourself get pissed off at this domesticated animal that's in your house, that's not even conscious, that doesn't even know, he doesn't even know what he's doing, that he's supposed to be in the kitchen at night and all that. He's just doing what he feels. And you're gonna get mad at this cat, this literal animal that doesn't even speak English?
And it's not even, conscious in the sense that human beings are conscious. And I just started laughing at myself. I was like, what on earth are you doing, brother? Like, you're going to let that ruin your mood? You're going to let this little interaction with this little shit of a cat, this little cute little motherfucker, you're going to let that ruin your night? No. So I started laughing. I was like, oh, damn, I'm such an idiot. And then I just went on to make my food. And that's it. My mood was fixed. But you'll notice there, when I noticed that I was being a fool, I was being an idiot, when I said to myself, Chris, you're being such an idiot, I didn't say that in a tone of, oh, I'm so stupid, right? Like this, like, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm so useless. Oh, like that is beating yourself up, right? That is the stimulus plus your negative response spiral. You're choosing to respond negatively, right? You're choosing to say that you are an idiot in a way such as to demean and victimize yourself. Versus when I was saying it, I was saying like, oh, I'm such an idiot in the sense that, look, I'm better than this. I know that I'm better than this. I am above this current behavior. This behavior that I'm manifesting right now, that is clearly me being a fool, I'm better than this. It's time to wake up. Boom. Hey, come on, Chris. You know you're better than this. Come on. All right. That's the positive response spiral. So this is what we want to practice. If you have a stimulus that is demonstrably just showing you that you really have so far to go and that there's so many things you need to do and whatever, it's so easy to let that stress you out. But it can only stress you out if you choose to respond negatively to it. You can choose to respond positively. Hey, time to wake up, time to get to work, let's go, right? I'm better than this. Hey, whatever it is I'm doing now, fuck it, right? That's old me. That's old me who doesn't really care like that. That's just the remnants of old me just sticking to my old ways. It's cool, whatever, but I'm better than this. Okay, let's go. Let's wake up. Boom. All right. So we want to pair the stimulus with a positive response. Okay. So you want to be consistently applying pressure to yourself. Why? Like, why is this stimulus even necessary? Again, it's because you're going to be filtering your actions through your vision, right? And you need this internal urgency to be sustained. If you don't have this internal urgency, then you're going to need a hell of a lot of external urgency to make you move and make you do things, right? And I'll get into why that's difficult later. But you are really going to need this internal urgency, and it's only going to be sustained from consistently filtering your actions through your vision. And through doing that process, you're going to notice a bunch of things that you're doing that are stupid. You're going to notice a bunch of things you're doing that are bringing you toward your personal hell. I guarantee you there's going to be a list of things, a whole host of them. And so in order for that to give you proper internal urgency, you need it to last long. And by lasting long, I mean you need to view that as pressure, as good. Like, okay, you know what? Good. Fuck it. Fine. That's pressure. Fuck it. I can take it. There's, in your mind, you can manufacture a sense that it's really important that you solve these problems, because if you don't solve these problems, you're going to end up at your personal hell. All right. So that's what I mean. That's giving yourself internal urgency. So your ability to consistently apply this pressure to yourself is where your internal urgency is going to be sustained from. Now, external urgency is riskier to utilize. Okay. It's riskier because there's obviously more at stake. That's actually a good thing if you think about it. But even more potent, right, to get you to do the work. External urgency is the most potent thing, right? Now, in the absence of that, you will need a whole fuck ton of internal urgency in the absence of external urgency. So we'll cover this in, the next section, actually, right? Because it deserves an entire section on its own. So that's right here, right? So the power of external urgency. Now we're going to cover, I've personally harnessed external urgency a lot in my own life, okay, to great success in my entrepreneurial journey, and even back when I was working a sales job, right? So yeah, in the span of the same 3 months, right, I put all of these external urgency factors on myself. So I dropped out in year 3 of a 4-year computer engineering degree at the National University of Singapore, which I'm pretty sure is 8th in the world. And it made no sense to basically anyone other than me, and maybe 1 or 2 people that understood what I was doing. And the entire world of authority and of people in my life was all treating me like I was clinically insane, right? But yeah, so I did this. This was insane urgency. So in the span of the same 3 months, I dropped out, only having like a year and a half left to finish my degree. I lost all of my active agency clients in the same month. This is true, right? That was brutal. And some of it was my doing, right? Some of it was within my control, and some of it was outside of my control. Right. So I had to deal with that as well, mentally, right? Like knowing that, okay, this thing was preventable, oh, this other thing wasn't preventable, I was gonna get screwed either way. Like I had to deal with that, of course, right? I told my parents I was moving out by year's end with no, like, I said this statement, I said this with like almost nothing in my bank account. Like, really. I said, I'm gonna move out end of the year. And if you checked my bank account at that very moment, you'd be like, what the fuck is this guy on about? He is insane. There is no way that's gonna happen. Okay. So I said this and I meant it. And so yeah, and then so all of this, by the way, same 3 months, this all occurred. Okay, I incurred thousands in an injury rehab. Like I tore a ligament in my foot, and I genuinely had to spend thousands of dollars to rehab that. And yeah, that's it. And for the first time in my life, my bank balance was a single digit. I remember so distinctly after paying something in the injury rehab, after paying that clinic, and I wasn't sure if the payment was going to actually go through or not because I couldn't remember exactly how much I had in my bank. And I sent the transaction and it went through, and I was like, okay, that's like, because that would have been embarrassing. Like the receptionist is over there, like, looking at me, talking to me, would have been so embarrassing if my like card declined or whatever, right? And I walked out of the clinic and I was walking on the street to get the bus. And I walked and I opened my banking app and I saw a single digit. And I was like, fuck. And then I started calculating, like, how many bus rides do I have until I run out of money? So all of these 5 things happened in the same 3 months. Some of these, again, look, some of these are like, I did this to myself. This I did to myself. This, it was an accident. Like I got into, it's not like I could have prevented it. At least for me, I'm thinking just from accountability, right? Like, yeah, okay, I probably could have prevented this. But this one, I just did it to myself, right? This, again, some of it was controllable, some of it wasn't. But it's still urgency, right? This, again, I did it to myself. So I placed a lot of external urgency on myself just with these couple of things. Now, what did that result in? Okay. Well, anyway, so you'll notice that none of these are little mind tricks. None of these are internal urgency. It's all very real. I was making decisions in my life that had very real consequences on my future. So some of these were self-inflicted, some were life-inflicted, right? Some actually weren't in my control. Now, what was the result? In a single month, I 5x'd my business, right? Basically, in the third, or rather in the fourth month, like after this 3 months, all right? I 5x'd my business. I scaled more aggressively than ever, hiring, systemizing, automating in my business, right? And I hit my first 20K in revenue that month. So in a strange way, the fastest way to have something is to leave yourself no other option than to have it. When your back is against the wall, the only way you can move is forward. If you put your back against the wall, you can't go back anymore, right? So as a wise top G once said, you're a different kind of man when you have to pull it off. All right. So, very few men know what it's like to roll a die and say that I have to get a 6. People ask, well, what do you mean you have to get a 6? It's like, no, like I have to get a 6. Well, what if you don't? It's like, no, you don't understand. I have to get a 6. Right. So this is the situation that I put myself in. Now, again, I'm not like, we're going to get into how you can create urgency in your life later. I'm not giving you instructions to do what I've done. Okay. But this is the external urgency that I put on myself. None of it was little mind tricks. The internal urgency, the mind tricks are important. They're good, but it's also very powerful to put external urgency on yourself. I would say it's like I said up here, it's more potent, right? It's even more potent. So in the ways that you can put external urgency on yourself, it would be good to. So over here, Sun Tzu, right, or Sun Tzu if you're Chinese. Sun Tzu, the famous Chinese military general and strategist who wrote The Art of War, would advocate for deliberately placing his soldiers in unforgiving and poor strategic positions, known as death grounds. Okay, and you get them to fight from that position, even though it meant almost certain death, just to give them the desperate edge, right? The external urgency that makes them fight like demons, right? Because they know how likely it is that they're going to die if they don't fight their absolute hardest. And so what do? They fight like hell, right? Versus when they're not in that situation, they might not have the urgency to do that, right? This is extreme, of course. This is an extreme circumstance, but this is just showing the power of external urgency, right? So the curse that currently plagues you, okay, if you feel like you have no urgency, one of the reasons is because you probably have a back door, or you probably have multiple back doors. Okay, you have an escape hatch, an out somewhere. You may think that this escape hatch, this fallback option, is a blessing, but it is in fact the curse that is holding you back. Okay, so whenever your work comes down to the wire, when it comes down to that last little bit of something that you could do or you couldn't really do it, that where you can either really immerse yourself deeper and you can go fully in, or you can take it easy. As long as you have a back door, as long as you have escape hatches, you will choose the latter. You will, and even if you sometimes do choose to immerse yourself deeper, right? You might only choose to do that 3 out of 10 times. When you don't have the escape hatch, you do it 10 out of 10 times. So any way you spin this, you might be saying that, oh, well, Chris, but contingency planning and safety and risk management and everything. I get it. Okay. I'm just making the case that as long as you have an escape hatch, your brain is not stupid. Your brain is really, really not dumb. You can't, it's so difficult, and I would say it's pretty much impossible to fake your mind into thinking that you don't have that escape hatch, because it's smart. It knows yeah, bro, yeah, you're full of shit. Don't worry. We still have a safety net. Don't worry. It knows that. Okay. So when you get down to those last few moments, and when there's version of you that doesn't have the escape hatch, version of you that does, when it comes down to the thinnest, like the last fucking moment, if you put these two people into a cage fight and you're in like the 5th round of this cage fight, and what's on the line is I don't know, something valuable, let's say $50,000 or something, and you're fighting for 50,000. This guy has 0, and this guy has a stable job that's giving him income, and he's like chill with that. It can be an even fight, but in round 5, when it's down to the last 2 minutes, who's going to want it more? The guy without the escape hatch is going to want it more. Okay. This is not to say that the unequivocally smartest option on the table for you is to go homeless and give away all your money, right? That's not what I'm saying. Of course, every individual is posed with different sacrifices that they can or can't make in their lives. And it just comes down to priorities for you at the end of the day, right? Just know that if you're perpetually in a position of comfort, security, and with multiple contingencies and fallbacks, that it will just be more difficult for you. Not impossible, but it will just be more difficult for you to compete with the men that have everything on the line with nothing to lose. Okay, so as much as you can be the man that puts everything on the line, it would be useful for you to do so. Let's just put it that way, right? In fact, I'm gonna pull up a poem right now. Oh, hang on. There. Okay, I really like this poem. Okay, this is my favorite poem of all time. Now, I'm bringing this up because there's just one line about what I'm talking about here. So just read this in your own time, but the line I'm looking for is here. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. Okay. So what I'm saying is that sometimes this is useful, right? This is urgency. Okay. So just keep that in mind, right? I'm not saying sell everything, go homeless, right? Go broke. But when you do have external urgency, you're harder to compete with. And if you're super comfortable, just know that there's someone out there with everything on the line, right? And they're going to outcompete you. So if you're in a position where you can afford to create some external urgency, I'm not saying everything, but just create some, right? Put something at risk, put something on the line. There has to be something to get you off your ass, right? I don't know how else to say this yet. You need to actually put something on the line. Something has to be at stake. Okay. If you're in a position where you can afford to create some external urgency in your life without putting others at risk, right? Like your family or whatever, then your business/purpose endeavors stand to greatly benefit from your singular need-driven effort. Not want-driven, not maybe I want, like, no, need-driven. Something has to be at stake. So we're going to talk about 5 tactics to create some external urgency in your life. Now, these urgency tactics are extracted actually from the book 33 Strategies of War, right? And I want to emphasize that these are circumstantial. Okay, these are circumstantial, and they are mostly tactics to use temporarily when it's crunch time in your life. Okay, it's not crunch time if you don't need to be somewhere, at the moment. Although I'm guessing if you're watching this video, there's somewhere else that you want, like there's something that you're trying to achieve, right? And so it might be useful for you to utilize some of these urgency tactics in the short term. But most of these are temporary. These aren't the maximal well-being, most optimal states to be in for the rest of your life kind of thing, right? This is not what this is. This is temporary strategies for urgency. Okay. They're not optimal as permanent modes of being, most of them. Okay. For well-being, to maximize well-being, right? These are great tactics that I actually couldn't have worded better myself, right? But I really believe that they'll help you. So I want to share them with you. If you're keen to read the full book and know where exactly, read these in full detail and see exactly where they came from, then I linked over here, 33 Strategies of War, the book, right? You can check it out. Otherwise, I'm just going to cover the strategies in there, right? Just synthesize this for you a little bit. So number 1 is stake everything on a single throw. Okay, this is like If by Rudyard Kipling, the poem that I just showed you, right? Stake everything on a single throw. Often we try too many things at once, thinking that one of them will bring us success, right? So this is like the guy who's doing, drop shipping and agency and I don't know, like wholesaling or whatever, like all at the same time, and he's waiting for one of them to take off. But in these situations, our minds are diffused, right? Our efforts are half-hearted. It is better to take one daunting challenge, even one that others think foolish, right? Our future is at stake. We cannot afford to lose, so we don't, right? Stake everything on one single throw, and you will make that work. Because like I said, you don't have a backup. Like, this is the thing. If you're like, oh, let me stake everything on one throw, and then, but in the back of your mind, you know that you have something else, right? Then like I said, your brain's not stupid. Okay. So when you cannot afford to lose, that's when you don't lose. Act before you are ready. Okay. We often wait too long to act, particularly when we face no outside pressure. It's sometimes better to act before you think you are ready. This is the problem with so many people, like in business or even in relationships, where it's like, oh, I'm not ready. It's like, look, bro, you think one day something's going to come to you and you're just going to magically feel ready? Like, no, you're not. The people who succeed are the people who act regardless of their not feeling ready. It's like courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in spite of fear, right? In the presence of fear, still taking action. That is courage, right? So the people that make waves and the people that succeed, right? I can't believe I just said make waves, but the people who succeed, the people who take action even when they don't feel ready. Because you're not going to sit around and magically get this feeling that you're ready. It's about acting despite that feeling. So It's sometimes better to act before you think you're ready. Not only will you take your opponents by surprise, these can be like, just this is talking about your goals, things that you're trying to avoid, etc. You'll also have to make the most of your resources, right? So you've committed yourself and you cannot turn back. Under pressure, your creativity will flourish. Do this often and it will force you to think and act fast, right? One example of this is when I was working a sales job. Remember how I said at the top of this document that I used to implement urgency there? So there were instances where, let's say, I was going to, I was talking to a slightly older prospect about maybe estate planning, which is basically planning for all of the things, how you're going to divide up your wealth, your estate, right? Estate means like all of the assets and everything that you have after you die. That's estate planning. So I'll be talking to maybe an older prospect about that, but I'm not so sure about certain things. I'm not so firmed up on what the actual insurance like things are, and maybe what the red tape is and how the legalities of everything work out. So I remember I'd go to my supervisor and I'd say, I could book this appointment. I'd be like, okay, I could book this appointment, but it's for estate planning. And I think I need to know more. I don't feel ready for this appointment. If it was like in 2 days, I wouldn't feel ready because I don't know enough about estate planning, right? I need to go and like do all of that first, and then I'll come back and talk to this guy and book the appointment. And my supervisor said to me, bro, you have so many other things going on. You're not going to go and read that estate planning stuff. Like what makes you think you're going to open up a whole like book of legal stuff like when you have all of these other appointments going on or whatever? He said, book the appointment first, and that forces you to go and really actually read up on estate planning. That gives you 48 hours to become sharp. And that's only when that happens, then you're really going to do it. All right. Otherwise, you're just gonna sit around and say, "Oh yeah, later. I'll book it later. Yeah. I'll talk to that guy later. Once I feel ready. So that was a lesson for me. I was like, that's true. Commit to the thing first. Book it first or whatever. Just commit first, and that will force you to take action, right? Because, like I said here, boom, you have committed yourself, and now you can't turn back. So now that I told this guy I'm meeting him in 48 hours, I'm like, shit. Okay, yeah. Now I really need to go and learn this stuff, right? Enter new waters is the third one. So force yourself to death grounds sometimes, right? The death ground strategy that we talked about earlier, right? Force yourself into that. Leave behind your stale relationships and comfortable situations, cutting your ties to the past. If you give yourself no way out, you will have to make your endeavors work. Okay, really. Leaving the past for unknown terrain is like a death, and feeling this finality will snap you back to life. It's quite an intense statement, but it is true in some sense, right? There's nothing like really putting yourself, risking everything, like putting things actually at stake, right? Make it you against the world, right? A fighting spirit needs a little edge, some anger and hatred to fuel it. Get aggressive and irritated and infuriate people directly. Now, don't really know how this might be valuable, right? But this could be valuable in the sense of, I left it in here because I was talking earlier about actually letting things piss you off, right? Sometimes that's good. And I'm not saying that is a good, sustainable, long-term fuel, because I don't believe that it is. Like I said before, I don't think that these are modes of being that are optimal for long-term well-being, but they are good for temporary, like Alex Hormozi would say, use what you've got, right? If there's some anger, that can be a good thing. It can motivate you in the right way, right? So if necessary, right, if you're going to irritate and infuriate people with your actions, but they have to be done, then you have to do it, right? Don't be afraid to be a little bit aggressive in the pursuit of the things that you know you need to do. Keep yourself restless and unsatisfied. Make risk a constant practice. Never let yourself settle down, okay? This is a really, really good short-term strategy to really get yourself off your ass. Just keep yourself restless. The problem with this is that there's this voice in your head that's like, well, can I always be restless? No, I'm not saying always, forever, your entire life be restless and unsatisfied. Although some people do live that way, right? Like Andrew Tate, for example, he's a prime example of someone who he self-admits that, look, he's constantly restless and unsatisfied, and he chooses to keep himself that way. That's fine, right? Some people will want to live that way, right? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But all I can say is that this is a good short-term strategy for getting urgency. You could apply it in the long term. That's entirely up to you. Okay. Now, what boats can I burn? This is the action step. Okay, because this entire thing has been about urgency, burning the boats, right? Creating internal urgency, creating external urgency. So now we're going to create your urgency document. Let's figure out how you can make yourself feel more urgency in your life. Okay, this is going to be crucial. Okay, perfect. So here is where your mind will go when it's looking to grow rapidly. Now, this document will not serve you if you are not prepared to enter a phase of rapid growth and change in your life. If you're not in that phase, if you're comfortable where you're at right now, then just click away. It's fine, right? But if you're not comfortable and you actually have things that you want to achieve and you have desires that you want to move towards and fears and things you want to move away from, and you're prepared to go through rapid change in your life and put things at stake, then continue watching. All right. How to use this document. Sit down without a time limit and ask yourself the following questions. Okay. What is a safety net that I am currently relying on? Without this safety net, okay, so these are the supplementary questions. Without this safety net, would I be imminently dead? Like, would I actually die soon? Can I get rid of this safety net? Maybe you can, maybe you can't, right? Now, if not, if I can't get rid of it, in what ways can I reduce its presence or function in my mind and my life? Okay, so I have an example here written. What's the safety net I'm currently relying on? For a lot of you, it's going to be this: my parents. I'm relying on them financially and physically. They pay for my stuff. They keep a roof over my head, right? Without this safety net, would I be imminently dead? No, the reality is that you wouldn't be. Come on, right? It's not like you will have somewhere to go. You'll have someone's couch to sleep on. You'll have a place to go. You might have a little bit of money or something. You would not be imminently dead. You likely have people that would help you out, etc. And you're not going to die. Okay. But I know there's a part of your brain that's afraid that you're going to die, but you're not. Can I get rid of the safety net? Maybe partly yes, but also partly no. Like, they're your parents, right? You're not going to try and get rid of them, right? So that's why I said partly, right? Partly. So if not fully, then yeah. So this should be fully. If not fully, then in what ways can I reduce its presence or function in my mind and life? Right. So the part that you can manage is, hey, maybe I can tell them, look, mom, dad, please stop giving me money or allowance or whatever it is. Stop paying for all of these things. Tell them a timeline that, I'm going to move out and I mean it. Okay. Based on this timeline, like, give me like I'm going to, in 12 months, whatever it is, in 12 months, I'm going to move out, or in 6 months, I'm going to move out. Right. You can do that. You can do that. You can do them both. Right. Tell them, look, I want to start paying for my own blank now. Right. I want to start paying for my own meals now. I want to start paying for my own education now, and mean it. All right. These are just examples of ways that you can reduce the presence or function of this safety net. Since you can't get rid of it entirely, like I said, with your parents, like, you're not going to, like, you're going to have like a beautiful relationship with your parents and just cut them all off and like, oh, I'm creating urgency. Like, no, right? But you can reduce the function and the presence. So you can say, look, okay, mom, dad, stop paying. Please stop paying for this. I'm going to stop paying for it now. I'm going to stop paying for this. I'm going to stop paying for that. I'm also going to move out at this time. Say it, mean it. And if, your parents, likely because they love you, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. What, like, okay, yeah, cute. But you have to mean it. You have to mean it and you have to stick to it. Okay. That is going to create urgency because you're going to be like, well, I said I was going to move out. And if you don't, then you become what? You become that son that that is like saying that he's going to grow up but never does. No, you're not going to let that happen to yourself. You are better than that. So when you say something, you are a principled man. When you say you're going to do something, you mean it. I said I'm going to move out. I am going to move out. Not like, oh, well, this is that. No, you're principled, right? So if you say it and you mean it, that will give you urgency. Especially if you start paying for your own stuff, you're going to start running out of money pretty quickly. What other options? So question number 2. What other options are there for me that I secretly know are there if I need them? This is a difficult question. It's a difficult question. That's why I said sit down without a time limit. Okay. Now, without these options, same thing. Would I be imminently dead? Okay. This is different from a safety net. This is like a safety net is a fallback, right? Other options are, oh, well, I could completely change course in this way. I could completely change direction in this way, right? What other options are available that you secretly know are there? Like, if I could still do this. Like, there's this place that I used to work at. Maybe they'll take me back. They might take me back. You know, even though that's not like a safety net per se that you're relying on, but it is an option that's still on the table that you secretly know, like, I still could, right? How can I functionally get rid of these options in my mind and life? Functionally just get rid of them, right? They might still exist, right? Like for example, that place you used to work at might, yes, like they might always take you back. But I mean functionally get rid of them, meaning treat it as if, no, like I cannot go back for X reason. I cannot go back because of fill in the blank, right? So try and functionally get rid of them. Think about how you can functionally get rid of those options. Now, question 3 is what's something that would take me closer to where I want to be that I'm putting off because I am not ready? Okay. Answer that and then answer this. With a gun to my head, how fast could I do that thing? Meaning, if the ultimate thing was at stake, your life, how fast could you do that thing? You'd probably do it faster than you think. But when you think about it with this context, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I can do it. In fact, I can do it pretty fast. Knowing that I have to commit to action before feeling ready, okay, because this is true, what is the first action step in this chain, right? In the chain of actions to do this thing, what is the first action step in the chain that would need to be done? Okay, if I don't know, I'm thinking of an example. If the action is you need to set up your Shopify site, what is the first action to doing that? It's probably logging into Shopify, setting up an account. That's the first action step in the chain to creating the site, right? Now, would doing that action step force me to continue with the subsequent action steps? I don't think, starting a Shopify account does fully commit you, but probably what does is buying their whatever plan. Because now you've committed money. So now you have to follow up with the next action step because now you've put something on the line. You've put something at stake. You put money down. So you're like, okay, now I'm committed. Now I have to do this thing. If not, how can I make sure I'm forced to commit to the next step? I just covered that, right? These are all questions that you should answer. Okay, about this thing that you're putting off. Answer these questions. Okay, so those are the 3 questions that I want you to just sit down and ask yourself and answer them without a time limit, right? And that's going to tell you how you can implement more urgency in your life right now. Okay. Just remember the combination of internal urgency and external urgency is what's going to help you. So the vision that we created is going to help you with your internal urgency, and answering these questions and taking action on these is going to create more external urgency, right? Getting rid of a safety net or functionally getting rid of as much of the safety net as possible. Getting rid of your other options, right? Like so that you can stake everything on a single path. You want to get rid of the other paths, get rid of them, functionally get rid of them. What do I secretly know is there? And how can I get rid of it so I can focus on this one thing and stake everything here? That's external urgency. Something that would take you closer that you're putting off because you're not ready, right? Taking action on that thing immediately, today, right? Or after you're done filling out these questions, taking action on that immediately is going to show you what that's like. You're going to commit yourself to that thing. That is going to give you urgency as well. It all comes down to actually putting things at stake. Okay. So this has been Burning the Boats, and this is your urgency document. So now that you're done with this module, fill out this urgency document, right? Take the time that you need. These are just questions that you're just going to reflect on yourself, right? Yeah, like I said, I'm not here to tell you what to think and tell you exactly what you should do with your life and you should get rid of this and you should. You're going to figure it out for yourself. Why? Because you're capable of doing that. You are a man who's capable of doing that. You have the logos, you have the rationality, the power of discernment at your fingertips as a man. You're going to use that here. Okay. So these are just questions for you to reflect on. Your answers that you come up to these questions are what you should follow. Okay. Not what someone else is telling you to do. Okay. So just reflect, use these questions without a time limit. Okay. Once you're done with this, once you've answered all of these questions, then head to the next module and I'll see you there.